You're listening to Straight Outta Stratford 203 with Zach and Julian, the best sports podcast in Connecticut. Sit back and enjoy the ride in 3, 2, 1.
Straight Outta Stratford, slinging takes like Stafford, talking all the big games, have a beer right after. When it comes to the facts and the stats we provide, better know that our names will be up in the rafters.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Straight Outta Stratford podcast, episode number 50, season 2, episode 3. I am your host, Zach.
And I'm Mike.
And we are back in the studio with quite the hectic week that we've had. Holy smokes. Ooh. We got a lot of topics we're going to be covering. Mike, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are going into the official summer of chaos.
Oh, man, it is the summer of chaos. Right when you thought it couldn't get better for really the New York sports fans here, coming off the Knicks championship, we get this entertaining summer of insane NBA chaos. But really, before we get into this NBA chaos, we're also getting treated with some incredible NHL chaos as well. So, Zach, you want to run us down some hockey here?
Oh, yeah. We got a couple NHL moves as of yesterday, past couple days, I'd say, that have been absolutely nuts. Really kicked it off. I know we touched about the Brady Tkachuk trade that happened last week and some other ones, but the Rangers really kicked it off. They traded for Pavel Dorofeyev from the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for picks number 26 and 92 in this year's draft, which just passed, and a 2028 top 10 protected first-round draft pick. You also saw the St. Louis Blues trade for Mason McTavish from the Anaheim Ducks for pick number 15 and pick number 29 in this year's draft. Carolina looked like they were going to trade for John Carlson from the Anaheim Ducks. They got the rights for him, and he ended up signing a 2-year deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning instead. So that was a little weird. You had the Florida Panthers getting Jacob Markstrom from the New Jersey Devils along with Angus Crookshank in exchange for Evan Rodriguez, Jesper Boquist, and Ben Steeves. That was another very big trade. I think that has a lot to do with some other trades that will happen down the line. Nico Hischier signs his 5-year, $58.5 million extension with the New Jersey Devils. Eetu Luostarinen signs an 8-year, $40 million extension with the Florida Panthers. That was another one. Matt Zuccarello, former Ranger, signs with the Los Angeles Kings for 1 year, $1 million. He actually is joining Corey Perry as well, who just signed with the Los Angeles Kings. You see Stuart Skinner sign with the Winnipeg Jets for $7.5 million over 2 years. This one is definitely going to be one that has some implications, most likely meaning Connor Hellebuyck will be on his way out the door of Winnipeg. Very shocking. One of the best goalies in the NHL. You also see Matias Maccelli sign a 1-year, $2.25 million deal with the New York Islanders. Jacob Trouba signs a 4-year, $33 million deal with the San Jose Sharks. Mason Marchment joins him in San Jose, 5 years, $33.75 million. You have Oliver Bjorkstrand signing with the Rangers for 1 year, $4.5 million. That's something that we're going to touch on a little bit. Sergei Bobrovsky, former Florida Panther goalie, signs a 3-year, $21 million deal with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Boone Jenner signs a 4-year, $23 million deal with the Washington Capitals, who continue to bolster their lineup. San Jose acquires Darnell Nurse from the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Shakir Mukhamadullin and Zach Sharp. You also see Jack Roslovic sign a 2-year, $8 million contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then to really round out the night, it was a lot of Rangers trades and signings. You see the Utah Mammoth acquire Vincent Trocheck from the Rangers in exchange for defenseman Sean Durzi, Cole Beaudoin, and a 2027 third-round pick. Then they also acquired defenseman Marcus Pettersson from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a 2030 top 10 first-round pick. Then the Rangers proceed to trade defenseman Will Borgen to the Boston Bruins for a 2027 second-round pick and a 2028 third-rounder. And then Anders Lee, former New York Islander, is on his way out to the Utah Mammoths as he signs a 3-year, $16.2 million deal with them. There are a lot of other moves that happened yesterday. I don't know how many people follow the NHL, but I will tell you this. If you do sports research like we do, and trades and signings in the offseason happen the way that they did yesterday, it is absolute madness. Every time you refresh the page, there's something new that pops up. It was absolutely hectic. On top of the fact that when you do a show like we are doing, where you have to cover more than just the NHL and you have the NBA as well, it makes it a lot more difficult. So yesterday was crazy, but we're just going to really briefly touch on the New York Rangers moves.
Yeah, so Zach, real quick, what's the context behind these New York Rangers moves in terms of why are they so active right now? What caused them to be so active here?
Well, I think the big thing for the Rangers that's really made them so active is, especially after the past couple seasons, I've talked about this on the show before.
Yeah.
The 2023-2024 season, you have a year where you go in as President's Trophy winners into the playoffs. You end up losing to the Florida Panthers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and you figure, okay, well, we got to try and get ourselves back. The following year, couple injuries, very bad play from the team. They looked very disconnected. Couple guys got moved off of, they missed the playoffs. You know, this past year, same thing. Another year where it's just really bad play, moving off of big guys like Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba, Artemi Panarin, just a couple names to say the few. You know, there were a lot of guys they moved off of, and they needed to go through what a lot of fans would rather call a rebuild. I know their GM right now, Chris Drury, will say that it is a retooling.
Yeah.
They needed to make a lot of moves to really bolster for the future more so. Bring in a lot of younger guys. Try and bring in some new faces that have a different identity to change the culture and bring them back to what we used to see from them, which is just, physical, youth, fast, quick pace of play style hockey. That's something that I've talked about multiple times on the show. That is what wins championships. Teams that bring physicality, grit, and youth into their lineup and have strong forechecking and just very good defense or neutral zone transitions. That's going to be a big thing that's really going to get you over the hump and try and win you a Stanley Cup championship. The Rangers just started to do that. We're not really sure how it's going to go or what the season will look like. I like some of the moves that they made so far, especially the Pavel Dorofeyev trade. I know a lot of people were very skeptical about him saying, oh, well, he's 25, which I like. They signed him to a massive extension already, 7 years, $77 million. He's going to be making $11 million a year. And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, it's only because he was with Vegas, and Vegas is loaded with star talent with guys like Jack Eichel and Mark Stone and Mitch Marner. And it's like, well, the one thing that the Rangers really lacked was having a true defined goal scorer like that last season. And it's not that they don't have talent around him. It's the talent is really still developing. Guys like Gabe Perreault, who's very young in his NHL career. Alexis Lafreniere, who definitely blossomed a little bit more towards the end of last season. He has not been the projected first-round pick that everyone expected from him so far.
Yeah.
He's shown glimpses of it. So I think that it's a good move to really add him in to a lineup that's got a lot of younger guys. I know that they still do have some older guys, but they have moved away from a few of them. Like I mentioned, Vincent Trocheck getting traded, Artemi Panarin getting moved, Jacob Trouba leaving, Chris Kreider leaving. So it's going to be a much different roster that they're going to have in the next season for sure.
Yeah, the youth movement is always good as a fan for the front office to kind of not be so stubborn, kind of check their ego a little bit. I'm hearing a lot of parallels between what they're doing right now and kind of similar to what the Mets are doing in a sense as well,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
That is something that I feel like a lot of fans have looked into and brought up as well. I know what the Mets have done so far through 2026 has not been great. Losing key cornerstone guys like Alonso and Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, Jeff McNeil, who, again, I wasn't really a big fan of, but he definitely did contribute to this team. And going the route of smaller market style build, I don't necessarily think that it's fully paralleled. It is in some sense, but I think what the Rangers did here is they went with safe choices. Like I said, Pavel Dorofeyev is a very safe choice. Look at his stats last year, 37 goals, 27 assists, 64 total points in 82 games, had 12 goals and 4 assists in the playoffs this past year. The guy's a playoff performer. He's very good on the power play. He was actually ranked, I believe, second in power play goals last year in the NHL, only behind, I believe it was Wyatt Johnston of the Dallas Stars. So he's going to be a very good goal scorer for them. I think you incorporate him onto their first power play unit, they're going to see some results there, especially with guys coming back from injury like Adam Fox, who missed a lot of last year as the defenseman and really the anchor of the power play. So that'll be interesting to see. But again, just a couple quick things with them. You look at their draft pick. Yeah. I know a lot of people were skeptical of that as well, saying, oh, well, they have the number 5 draft pick. And as they're going through the draft, Chase Reed, who's the number 1 defensive prospect left on the board, is still sitting there. and the Rangers pass on him, and they take Albert Smits, who is a 209-pound, 6'3" defenseman out of Latvia, left-handed shot. A lot of people were, like I said, very skeptical. For me, I looked into it a lot, read a bunch of blogs and seen what analysts have said or scouts have said, watched a couple clips of him. The guy is a physically dominant two-way defenseman. He's very, very good. He has a physical presence that he comes with. Very strong skating abilities is one thing that a lot of analysts have said and that I saw from the clips.
Yeah.
Also, defense-first style game. I like that a defenseman wants to be more stay-at-home. He can incorporate some offensive defenseman style attributes to his game, but a lot of comparisons that he's getting is to Moritz Seider, the defenseman from the Detroit Red Wings, who very young, very talented player. And plus, on top of it, if you look into his resume, he's very NHL ready in the sense that he played in Liiga, which is Finland's top pro league last year at the age of 17 years old.
Yeah, it's impressive.
And he was actually the only draft eligible player this year that played in the Winter Olympics that just passed in Milan Cortina. So for Latvia, he was one of their better players. The guy is going to be a very, very good player. I think that he's pretty much almost ready to be in the NHL. Nice. If anything, if they don't feel that he's fully ready yet, I'd say, maybe give him a couple months to a year in the AHL and let him develop more, but I think that he should be ready. And then just to really round it out, they signed Oliver Bjorkstrand, very good, consistent two-way middle six forward. Trading Vincent Trocheck, I know a lot of people were upset. That one stings because, he is a New York Ranger that was a fan favorite, and a lot of people loved his contributions, including myself. I'm a big Trocheck fan, so it's sad to see him go. I wish him the best of luck in Utah.
Yeah.
But they bring in a good defensive player in Sean Dursey, which has a lot of promise. A prospect in Cole Beaudoin that is very, very well warranted. I think that he's going to be a very good player in this system. Trading for Marcus Pettersson, another defenseman that really ensures that their blue line is a little bit more protected. Only move I didn't like was them bringing in Jonas Korpisalo as a backup goalie. I think that it's Dylan Garand's time to be the backup behind Igor Shesterkin. That's just me, but you get some draft capital. You don't really give up all too much, and they're really going through with a full retool. I've liked what Chris Drury's done very surprisingly.
Yeah,
so
do you
far.
think this team could be a dark horse, or at the very least like a playoff caliber team?
I think that as of right now, I could see them potentially being maybe like a wild card or a very low, or I'd say a mid seed. I'm not going to put them up amongst the likes of teams like Florida or Carolina, who Florida is looking to bounce back and win a Stanley Cup after missing the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Carolina's coming off of a Stanley Cup win this past season. I wouldn't put them up at that level. I think they still got a long way to go before they get there. But I definitely think that with the way that the Metro Division is set up right now and the way that the Eastern Conference looks, I think that there's a good chance that they could squeak into the playoffs. Now, it may not be the best thing for them because if you're trying to rebuild for the future, you do want draft picks. You do want some young prospects to really come help you fill out your roster. But again, I think that with the star talent that they have and some of the younger guys, this team could potentially surprise a lot of people. A lot of people are comparing them to Boston of last year, saying that they didn't look great roster construction-wise, but they came out, played a good style of hockey, they all gelled, the chemistry was good, and they ended up making the playoffs. Didn't really do much, but, enough to see them compete. That's all I really want to see from this team after missing the playoffs the last 2 years.
Yeah, and build towards the future.
Absolutely.
As well, yeah.
Now, enough with the hockey talk because I know everybody really wants to hear about what's going on with the NBA. This is the big week that we've had so
Crazy.
far. A lot of people are saying that this could be one of the craziest off seasons that we've had in the past couple of years. Yeah. I think the only other one that may compete is maybe 2019.
Yeah.
From what a lot of people are saying, I think that it's right alongside.
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, this is
it very
crazy.
Easily could be. I know we talked about the Giannis trade last week. We have more breaking news on the trade front. First one that happened this week.
The Ja Morant.
Ja Morant gets traded to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray.
Yeah.
Now, this trade is very odd to me.
Yeah.
I don't know who's a clear winner or loser of this trade. I genuinely don't know which direction to really look at it in.
Feels like a wash.
It kind of does feel a little bit like a wash to me.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. Only because you look at the pieces traded, you look at the roster construction now.
Yeah.
The Trailblazers are so loaded with guards. Scoot Henderson, Damian Lillard, Drew Holiday, Ja Morant, and there's probably some other ones too.
Yeah, you pretty much can't play Scoot and Ja together. They have an extremely similar play style, both slashers, both not high-level three-point shooters, both not high-level defenders, though Scoot is getting better in that sense. So, yeah, it is a very odd roster construction when you're looking at Portland. They're just kind of trying to acquire talent, but at what point do you start looking at roster fit? Roster construction, right? Yeah. You look at a rebuilding team that's perpetually in this rebuild, perpetually just in this state of mediocrity, which they took a step forward last year. You want to see them start to gear their roster towards, you want Donovan Clingan to start to get good playoff minutes. You want some of these young guys, Scoot Henderson. You want playoff experience. So for them to go get Ja Morant with these assets of Jeremy Grant, who is a desirable player. He's a wing that, in a league that needs wing defenders, coming off a Knicks championship, when you see OG Anunoby be probably the most valuable defender on that Knicks team. Again, Jeremy Grant is a valuable player in the NBA. So for them to get Ja Morant from Jeremy Grant, I think for the Memphis is not terrible value. We saw what Trae Young just got traded for. I actually think this is probably slightly better value. Other than that, though, I don't like this roster fit for both teams, really.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by the whole sake of, if you look not just at their roster construction, but if you look at their profiles, a lot of them are very similar build.
Yeah.
This is going to be a team that if you run multiple of those guys on the floor together, it is going to be very hard for them to guard certain players in this league, especially the way that the offense has picked up in the past couple of years. And we've seen more lethal offenses in the NBA than what we've seen maybe in the past. Yeah. That is going to be detrimental to their team. I don't think that it was a really great move. Now, I do understand getting Ja out. It may be a good thing for him because now he can kind of escape from that original scenery that he was stuck in. Yeah. Memphis is able to really focus now on building around their young core of guys like Zach Edey and their newest draft pick, Cam Boozer. I think that that's going to be a decent move in regards to them. But the only question that I have for them now, for Memphis, is why they sold low on Ja. You had opportunities to trade him in the past. You know that he missed a lot of time. He's been injured. He's had his suspensions. You could have moved off of him earlier and probably gotten something better for him. I think that getting a 32-year-old Jeremy Grant is not really the best move to help them focus more on their youth movement. That's genuinely my thought on it, on top of the fact that I'm going to keep it a bean here. I don't even know who the other guy is in this trade at all. I sound like a terrible person for saying that. I'm sorry. I don't know who Chris Murray is.
Yeah, he's like a 3-and-D guy. He's like a depth piece they can maybe move on at the trade deadline. For me, the biggest question for Memphis, whenever you bring in a top 3 pick and Cameron Boozer, who's going to play, the power forward position, you want to pair him with either a young ascending guard or a veteran guard to take the pressure off of him, set him up for open shots. It's always detrimental for a young player to develop bad habits. And I think a lot of times players like Jeremy Grant, we saw this happen to Jeremy Grant. He gets drafted with no good guard alongside him, and he develops into this shot chucker pretty much because he has to have the brunt of the offensive load. So Jeremy Grant pretty quickly into his NBA career becomes this 20-point-per-game scorer, but this inefficient 20-point-per-game scorer who's never able to transition his game into becoming a winning wing player in the NBA, and I think that's what's plagued his career. You don't want to see this happen to Cameron Boozer, a guy who has phenomenal tendencies coming out of Duke, who has such a good shot selection. Now you're going to be asking a rookie who's not that developed as an on-ball player in terms of his ball handling skills, in terms of his creation skills, outside of kind of your post moves, your bread and butter post moves. He can't really create from the perimeter too much as a young player, though I think he will and can get there. Again, you want to pair that guy with a high-level point guard, or at least like a veteran point guard, a veteran shooting guard who's going to take the pressure off. So that's one thing I'm nervous for Memphis is, are they setting up Zach Edey, a young ascending player. Cameron Boozer, a young ascending player who needs a guard paired with them. Are you setting those guys up for failure?
Yeah, they may be setting them up for failure. And again, this is like I mentioned, going back to just the overall outlook of the trade.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who I think the winner and the loser is on this because
it's like a C+ trade for both teams.
I would say that it's just average for both. Yeah. I think that in better words, like you said, I think it's a wash.
Yeah.
I just don't see it really being too beneficial for either team. Portland, again, like I said, hurts the roster construction, doesn't really set their lineup the way they want it to. You're adding in a guy that very well could still have some issues off court, which brings a lot of distractions. I don't know if that was the best move, on top of the fact that, again, for Memphis, you want to focus on your youth movement. You need to help develop some of your young stars like Edey and like Boozer.
Yeah.
You don't give them the right opportunities to do so. I would have understood if maybe they moved Ja for somebody that was a little bit more proven at one of those, either the point guard or shooting guard position, to help them really develop. They don't end up doing that. I just overall thought that this trade was very awkward. I don't really give both teams really much credit for it. I think it was fairly weak, but I could see why the move happened. Just very weird placed.
The last aspect of this trade, maybe they're trying to tap back into their roots. I remember in the early 2000s when I first became an NBA fan, the Portland Trail Blazers, led by a guy named Zach Randolph, they were called the Portland Jail Blazers because they had a bunch of guys get arrested on their team in the early 2000s.
Wow.
Maybe they want to tap back into that. We'll see.
Hey, you know what?
Makes for a good Damian Lillard rap song right there.
Well, maybe it's trying to bring back good old memories and something like that. And speaking of bringing back good old memories, there was another trade that happened that did bring back some good memories for a couple people up in the six, and that is Kawhi Leonard got traded back to the Toronto Raptors from the Los Angeles Clippers in exchange for Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, 1 pick swap, and 2 second-round picks. This is something that Julian even mentioned on the show, as did you, right at the end of our last episode. We were talking about the possibility of Kawhi going back to Toronto. It is official. He does rejoin Toronto. I think that this trade was actually a very good one for both teams.
Phenomenal. I want to start this off by saying we talked about this mid-season for the NBA season about, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. This new Clippers organization, this new Clippers front office, got a really tough task, right? They have no picks. They still don't have their pick next year and the year after, which big winner of this trade is the Thunder. I mean, that unprotected first-round pick from the Clippers next year, that's going to be a top 10 pick. The Thunder are going to have another top 10 pick, guys, which is absolutely insane. That Paul George trade is the worst in the last 20 years. I think it's worse than the Luka Doncic trade. We'll talk about another Paul George trade coming up in the show, guys.
We won't
Stay
spoil
tuned.
it yet.
But this is just a good trade for the Clippers, man. They have an asset in James Harden mid-year. Flip him for Anthony Simons, who I think is an interesting young player, though he is in free agency now. They get some draft capital back from that. And again, they move on from Kawhi Leonard, who, he was a top 10 player in the league last year. He was phenomenal. He was an all-NBA caliber guy. Shout out Kawhi Leonard, helped me win my NBA fantasy championship. He was so good last year. But they're just getting draft capitals. They're getting draft assets. They're digging out of this hole they've just dug themselves. They've sunk themselves into. So for the Clippers organization, I do give them props for this trade.
Yeah, I think that what they did by doing this trade is, you add a guy like Brandon Ingram to your roster, who he's going to be a little bit more of a vet, not as old as Kawhi Leonard is, but he's going to be a premier scorer for that organization. Yep. It's going to keep them semi-competitive. They're not going to be, a huge contender in the West. As we know, the West is very, very tough. Yep. And especially, like I've mentioned before, it's top heavy. So it's going to be a little interesting to see how high up they go. I don't think it's going to be very high up, but now you can really build around a little bit more of a younger core and guys like Darius Garland and Benedict Mathurin, as well as bringing in Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick as well. You're going to have a ton of draft picks for the future. That is going to be huge for them for the long run. For the short term, this is huge for Toronto, because Toronto now, you add a premier scorer and a two-way player in Kawhi, being that he's very good defensively as well.
Scotty Barnes, Kawhi is disgusting defensively.
Disgusting. On top of the fact that you pair him with Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, that starting five is going to be a lot better than people give them credit for. I think that this is something that you said before, too. I would not be surprised if this makes them a higher up tier of contender in the East than a lot of some of the other teams that we've seen.
Maybe I'm overreacting, I think they're a tier 1 contender in the Eastern Conference right now. I think they're a top 5 team in the NBA already. This team is going to be a top 10 defensive team. They were so close to beating the Cavs in the first round of the playoffs last year. Brandon Ingram played terrible in that first round. If you just replace Kawhi Leonard with Brandon Ingram, or the other way around, I'm sorry, I think this team wins that series. They didn't even have Emmanuel Quickley for this series as well, a player I've always been super high on. I think he's a phenomenal scorer in the NBA. He's a 15-point-per-game guy on high efficiency. Again, missing Emmanuel Quickley last year had a great opportunity for Grady Dick, someone who got moved in this trade, to step up, play big minutes down the stretch of the regular season, and play big minutes in the playoffs. Guys, Grady Dick was getting DNPs at the end of the year and in the playoffs with Emmanuel Quickley injured. Grady Dick was basically a non-asset for the Raptors in terms of how they looked at it. Now, I do think he's an interesting young prospect still for the Clippers. He's always been treated as a really high-level three-point shooter. He gets guarded like a high-level three-point shooter. He shoots like 33% from the three for his career. He's not been a good player in the NBA despite being significantly hyped up. So they're basically getting Kawhi Leonard for just first-round draft picks and Brandon Ingram, again, a guy who wasn't contributing to a winning culture we're used to seeing. They're starting to tap back into their roots with Pascal Siakam, Kawhi Leonard of 2019. Now they have that in 2027, 2026, again with Kawhi Leonard and Scotty Barnes. This team is going to be so exciting. The one aspect of this team you look at and say, I wish it was a little bit better, is the three-point shooting, but this team still has so many assets to go out and get not a good role player three-point shooter, a high-level fringe all-star, in my opinion, because they still have RJ Barrett. I think they can move RJ Barrett and a couple more first-round draft picks for not Austin Reeves, but like a player of that caliber.
Wow, then that would be really interesting for Toronto, too. Like you mentioned, the Scotty Barnes and Kawhi Leonard pairing, I think, is going to be the biggest factor of this team. If you look at it a lot from last year, they did have a little bit of a strong supporting cast, but not strong enough.
Yeah.
I think that they did lack a consistent closer. That was a big thing that they really needed.
100%.
And you expected Brandon Ingram to kind of take on that role, and I don't think that he was really built for that with the team that was around him.
Yep.
Now you add Kawhi. I think Kawhi could potentially take that role on very easily, on top of the fact that it also helps them defensively. Like we mentioned, Scotty Barnes and him are going to be an elite tier defensive duo, which can switch across any position that you have going against some of the league's top offenses.
Crazy.
That's going to be insane, on top of the fact that this move is going to take a lot of pressure off of Scotty Barnes. I think that Scotty Barnes was a little bit like held back in a sense last year, whereas now with Kawhi, he can really take on that roam and disrupt role, which is something that I think that he'll be extremely effective with, while Kawhi continues to take on that more defensive mindset, but also being that isolation scorer for them. I think that he'll be able to, maximize his defensive playmaking and creating turnovers. That is going to be massive for Toronto. I think that this potentially puts them in contender tier. I would put them amongst likes of the Knicks, like the 76ers, which again we will get to at some point, as well as Detroit. I think Detroit's still up there too.
They are.
The East is going to be an absolute gauntlet next year. I think that, again, it's starting to become a little bit more top-heavy, similar to the West. But again, we saw how competitive it was last year in the East. It is going to be an absolute bloodbath, especially going down the stretch at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But one quick thing I'm curious to hear. You have any wrap-up thoughts on that trade before we get into the next?
So we don't have this written down on the docket, but I think a kind of hidden loser of this deal of the East just getting better and better, and I think we're finally seeing the East potentially better than the West, which we have not been able to say, really even in my lifetime as a huge LeBron fan. I mean, the East was always way worse than the West. I'm not going to pretend like that wasn't the case. I think a huge loser is the Miami Heat, guys. The Miami Heat go out. They're trying to win a championship. I screamed about it from the rooftop last year. This past season was the opportunity for every single team in the East to go out, go for broke, try to win a championship. Miami did this a year late. Now you're seeing the Raptors, the 76ers get significantly better. The Knicks still look phenomenal going into next year. The Pacers are going to be better going into next year. The Celtics are a wash.
Which we will get to.
We will get to. I talked about it last episode. I think this Miami Heat team was significantly contingent on Norman Powell, a guy who made the All-Star game last year as a replacement player, was bad to end the season, had a rocky relationship with them to end the season. He moves on and he doesn't re-sign with this team. I just don't even see how you can put the Heat in contention next year. They have a phenomenal defense, but I think this Raptors defense is a little bit more versatile.
I agree.
From an offensive perspective, I mean, it's not even close. A guy like Emmanuel Quickley is significantly better than anybody the Heat have 1 through 3 on that roster. No less RJ Barrett, no less Scotty Barnes. If you're the Miami Heat, man, you've just completely struck out the last 48 hours of free agency. You don't have a lot of cap space. You don't have a lot of guards left on this free agency market. As we'll talk about, the Lakers kind of got a lot of guard play themselves and sucked up a lot of those resources. I think the Miami Heat are a huge loser here.
Yeah, I could see where everyone takes, or where at least your take leads with the Miami Heat, because, I know that they made the big swing and get Giannis, and we saw how much they gave up for him and what their roster really looked like after that trade. I think that adding Tyler Herro to that trade definitely made it worse, just because I know Herro was the better of the players involved in the trade, and he was going to be the guy that was moved. It's just him. You look at it now, especially now with Norm Powell leaving, they got nobody. They got Bam. It's literally they're going to be running out 5v2. It's going to be Bam and Giannis versus everybody. So I definitely agree. I think that they should be considered as losers of it right now. I think that the Giannis trade gave them that false sense of hope and an idea that they were going to be contenders. I saw people going, oh, Miami enters the conversation. It's like, well, they entered and they're already out of the conversation. Very, very confused on their moves, but I'm glad you mentioned the Lakers because speaking of moves that, again, very questionable in the conversation and out. You see the Lakers, LeBron announces that he no longer is going to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, that he is going to test free agency, and he's going to see where he can sign because he wants to be a contender. He also included that he is willing to take a pay cut.
Which is huge.
Which is massive, and I think that that's fantastic of him to do. I think that's the smart thing. So he's going to test free agency, so he no longer goes back to the Lakers. Lakers enter panic mode and go, oh boy, we just lost LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time. What should we do now? We are left with Luka and Austin Reeves and a couple other guys because there's some other question marks that are up in the air with who's going where. They proceed to sign 4 players in an hour.
Insane.
On top of the fact that the way that I'll say this, and I'll say this very nicely to all of you Laker fans out there, signed a whole bunch of very, very confusing people to very strange contracts. The first one,
sign and trade, man.
Well, the sign and trade was crazy. Walker Kessler, who I don't even know if he played a single game last year.
5 games last year. Let me real quick contextually for the Utah Jazz going into this restricted free agent market with Walker Kessler. They have Ace Bailey in the front court. You want him to play power forward. You have other centers on the roster. You have Lauri Markkanen as well, who you want to play stretch 4, stretch 5. You don't even have room for Walker Kessler on the roster, so you're looking at it and going, we're not going to match any contract for Walker Kessler. He got paid as a top 7 center in the NBA with this deal. So for the Utah Jazz, you go, we're probably losing him for nothing in restricted free agency, or at best, we're going to get some pick swaps, maybe a second-round pick. They end up getting multiple first-round picks. This is phenomenal value for the Utah Jazz, a team that had no leverage going into this Walker Kessler free agency market, man.
Well, on top of the fact that it's not just first-round picks, you have unprotected first-round picks in 2031 and 2033.
These are going to be good picks, man.
On top of first-round pick swaps in 2028 and 2030. I don't understand what the Lakers move here. I get it. Luka had said multiple times over and over, especially with LeBron before LeBron left, now that LeBron leaves, he wanted a big man.
Yeah.
So you go out and you get Walker Kessler. You give him up for 4 potential first-round picks.
And you don't have a tradable asset, a tradable first-round pick in 7 years. That's the entire Luka Doncic era, guys.
I mean, that was an absolute botch. Then signing him to a 4-year, $130 million deal. Again, like I mentioned, I don't even know how many games that guy played last year. I think you said 5.
He played 5 games.
So you're going to pay the guy on average more than $30 million a year when he did not play more than double-digit games last year.
And Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic already have injury concerns. So you're allocating $465 million, $500 million over the next 4 years for this big three that doesn't even fit well together. I mean, I think the roster construction for the Lakers, I think it's bad for the Heat. I think it's arguably worse for the Lakers. So this Laker identity to end the year, why they were so strong to end the year last year, and why they won a first-round playoff series without Austin Reeves, without Luka Doncic, it was this wing defensive presence from this team that was so phenomenal. And here's where I'm going to start to rip Grimes being added to this team and Colin Sexton. These are good players in a vacuum. They are not versatile in terms of positional versatility. Grimes is a 2/1. Colin Sexton is a point guard. He can't guard anyone else but a point guard. Grimes, I think, is a good defender, and I think will bolster their perimeter defense, but their guard defense. This team doesn't have a single wing defender on their team, and wing defense was literally their number one strongest asset to end the year. You had Rui Hachimura, who was phenomenal on the wing. He's gone. You had Marcus Smart, who was a point guard, but he has phenomenal positional versatility. Marcus Smart is a guy who guards literally the 1 through 4. This guy used to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Boston Celtics versus Bucks series. This guy was guarding the best 3s and 4s in the league last year. He was literally guarding Kevin Durant in that playoff series for a little bit. He was guarding Smith last year in that playoff series. So you move on from him, and then LeBron James, who was such a phenomenal defensive asset on the wing to really wrap up that good defense last year, he's gone. It's so funny. What team should LeBron go to? Maybe the team in the playoffs that needs a wing the baddest, and that is the Lakers. So for them to lose LeBron, man, is just such a shot in the foot.
I was, again, very baffled by all of it. I know they also added a guy who I'm probably going to botch his name. I know he's got nicknames. Insandro Mamukulashvili or something like that. I do not understand. Now, I know that if you look at it from a somewhat promising perspective and you try to take everything good into consideration. Now, Colin Sexton shot 41% from the field last year.
He's a phenomenal backup
range.
guard.
He is. He's a spark plug off the bench. He's going to help with their depth scoring in a sense.
Yeah.
You add Mumkash, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He is a big man that shot 39% from 3 last year. So again, the perimeter shooting will get a little bit better in a sense.
They will be a good 3-point shooting
And Quentin
team.
Grimes, again, like you mentioned, is more the 3-and-D style wing versatility, but overall, as a roster, you go from having a big three of guys like LeBron, Austin Reeves, and Luka to now having one of the most underwhelming rosters in the Western Conference, other than the fact that you have Luka and AR. If you don't have either of those guys, this team is a top choice for the NBA lottery. They are going to be trying to find themselves a number 1 pick. This roster is constructed awful, on top of the fact that this is the part that nobody has mentioned. I know that a lot of people are going to give me hate for this. LeBron leaves, but Bronny is still there getting $2.3 million guaranteed.
He's not even going to get playing time, man.
They're going to release
They're
him.
loaded on guards, man. That's what I don't get about these deals, man, for the Lakers. I think they could be a good regular season team. I think they're going to shoot the hell out of the 3-point ball. Just from a roster construction perspective, you didn't need another guard on this team. You could just stagger the minutes very easily between Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic to make it so every single minute of every single game, one of the two is out there running the first or second unit. You needed complementary pieces to this team. And again, all these moves in a vacuum aren't bad. When you combine all these moves, they have no more versatility left in terms of picks. You have no more versatility left in terms of salary capital. This team is hard stuck on their current roster construction, what it is now. This team roster construction-wise is just abysmal.
Oh, it's abysmal. On top of the fact that we mentioned very early into the trade, if Austin Reeves or Luka gets hurt,
they're screwed.
This team, again, I will reiterate myself, for those of you that didn't catch it the first time around, they are going to be a lottery pick team. They are going to be the bottom of the barrel and one of the worst teams in the West. That is if they get hurt. I'm not saying right now. Right now, with their starting lineup the way it is, I could see them potentially fighting for a play-in spot, maybe being an 8 seed. That's about as high as I'm going to put them right now. Because the Western Conference, we've talked about it, Minnesota got better. OKC is going to be tough. San Antonio is going to be very, very good again. I would not be surprised if the Rockets are still a little bit in contention. As long as KD stays, he's not planning on going anywhere, they'll be there. I think that some of the other teams have gotten a little bit better. You're going to see some guys come back from injuries that may have missed some time last year. I think the Lakers are probably in that 7, 8, 9, 10 range. That's about as high as I'd put them. And depending on where LeBron goes, who knows? Maybe Golden State re-enters the conversation again if they have Draymond and Steph and LeBron. Maybe. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself there yet because we're going to wait for Le Decision because he's going to be making his pick, I'm assuming, in the next, part 4. So he's going to be making his decision at some point in the next, I'm assuming, couple of weeks.
Yeah.
If it happens while we're on the air right now and we get off air and we see it, I'm going to scream.
I'd be upset.
But the one trade that
Real
I think...
quick, to wrap up this Lakers talk, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're good.
What's the sad and grim part about this trade? I think this puts the kind of coffin in Luka Doncic and all-time players' chances of winning an MVP, man. You need to be a top 3 seed to be able to win an MVP. We've never seen Luka Doncic win that MVP. I don't think they're ever going to be a top 3 seed in the next 5 years. They have no assets to be a top 5 or to be a top 3 seed. Not only that, guys, Luka Doncic feels no affinity to the Lakers. He wasn't drafted by the Lakers. He doesn't seem to love LA. He doesn't seem to love the Lakers as an organization. He seems to be dating that new hot girl who's still kind of not obsessed with their ex, but like still thinking about him. You know, he's still thinking about Dallas a little bit. Guys, he has no affinity to this team. There's no guarantee that he ends up re-signing with this team in 3 years. I have a bold take. I think the Lakers might be one of the worst teams, a bottom 5 team of the 2030s. I really do. I think them and the Warriors might be the 2 worst teams of the 2030s.
Yeah, well, the Warriors is kind of expected, especially after their dynasty run that they had. You knew that it could only last so long.
Apart,
and it was going to fall apart at some point. Steph's getting older. Draymond's getting older. Steve Kerr's still there, but you know, there's only so much you could do as a coach when you got players like Steph Curry on your roster. I mean, look at the roster that they had. I'm not going to sit here and say Steve Kerr is a bad coach because he's a very good coach, but I think that when you have a roster that includes Draymond, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and the depth that they had all those years, kind of makes sense to why they were as good of a dynasty as they were.
Yeah.
But again, I would not be surprised if your opinion there is correct too. I think that they have there's no way for them to rebuild their assets unless they move guys like Luka and Austin Reeves, and that's going to kill them in the short term. Yeah. If they keep them for the long term, they're really not going to have any pieces to really put around them. So it's going to be a very two-headed monster with the rest of all of the monsters around them are all the kind of face. So it's going to be painful to see. But one thing that I know is going to be painful to see, not for me, but for many others, especially you Boston Celtics fans out there, you know we were going to bring this up today, and that is
the heavy hitter.
Most bizarre, one of the craziest trades I've ever seen in my life. I'm not going to get too into it. I want to hear what you got to say first. And that is the Boston Celtics trading Jaylen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for Paul George, 2 first-round picks, and 2 second-round picks. I am baffled.
2 first-round picks from the team that has the best young backcourt in the league.
Yeah.
That's going to be VJ Edgecombe, guys, is going to be an all-star level player for the next 10 years, starting in, 2 years here? I want to first start this off by detailing the constant hubris of the Boston Celtics, the constant ego of the Boston Celtics, and the constant disrespect of Jaylen Brown that's been emanating off of this Boston Celtics front office. Let me give you the context. Jaylen Brown comes into the NBA as a top 3 pick in the league, immediately is one of the best young players in the league as a rookie without Jason Tatum, makes an Eastern Conference Finals as the second best team, or the second best player, if not the best player on the team without Jason Tatum. What do they do in the offseason? They have the first pick in the draft. They have a high-level point guard prospect they can draft, Markelle Fultz, who ends up sucking and ends up being a huge bust. So I will give the Celtics huge credit for having that foresight and not drafting Markelle Fultz. What they do in that offseason, they trade down and pick a player in Jason Tatum at the same exact position, and then you go out in free agency and get a player in Gordon Hayward, who's the only free agent the Celtics have gotten in the last 30 years, by the way. Or in the last, 15 years, I should say.
Yeah.
They end up getting a player in Gordon Hayward who's the same exact position. So again, after a phenomenal rookie season from Jaylen Brown, you get two players at the same exact position to logjam that position. You say, Jaylen Brown, I don't really trust you. And then from there, year in and year out, it seems the last 2 years, Jaylen Brown has been in trade discussions. Why? He's your finals MVP. And then going into this year, you don't have Jason Tatum, your golden child, who's supposedly more of a contributor than Jaylen Brown has. Even though Jaylen Brown proved it as a rookie, he can win without Jason Tatum. He goes out this year, proves that he could be a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA, an all-second team player. He would have made all-NBA first team if Luka Doncic didn't win his appeal to become an all-NBA first team player based on that missed game rule. So really, Jaylen Brown, MVP candidate, you disrespect him again. You put him in Giannis Antetokounmpo trade talks. That deal doesn't happen because, and here's where the hubris comes in and the stubbornness comes in from the Boston Celtics. The unwillingness to move on from late first-round picks every single year. They're ripping these late first-round picks that amount to absolutely nothing. In the last 20 years, you've drafted 2 players in the late first round who have been worth a damn. And Rajon Rondo, that was a long time ago, guys. And Peyton Pritchard, who was the 6th man of the year, but he was not a playoff contributor ever for this team. I don't care what any Celtics fan says. I mean, just the constant disrespect, and you trade them to the team you just blew a 3-1 lead against, a rival. So now you got chip on your shoulder, Jaylen Brown, who's going to torment you guys until the end of their career, man. What are your thoughts? Just terrible.
Kind of going, you basically hit the nail on the head there, but I will say this. I'll give my opinion on it. Number one, I personally think that this may go down as the worst trade.
Yeah.
Worse than the Luka trade. Worse than the original Paul George trade.
Yeah.
This was absolutely mind-boggling, and I think, personally, what must have gone through Brad Stevens' head, as crazy as this is, you try to take the swing for Giannis. It falls through. You're one of the favorites to land him. You've given him crazy offers, and it gets shut down.
Yeah.
He ends up leaving and going to Miami instead. He doesn't go to Boston. Boston sits there and goes, well, we miss out on our opportunity to extend our championship window. So you know what that means? We're going to get rid of our best player. And I would have understood if they decided to move off of him and they get an absolute haul.
Yeah.
Maybe they go out and, I'm not saying that the 76ers would have been stupid enough to do it, but they get Maxey. Or they get Edgecombe.
VJ Edgecombe straight up for a one trade there is better than
this.
But
that's what I'm saying is there's an opportunity that you can include one of those guys maybe in the trade, even at the worst. Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
You throw him into the mix.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, okay, that's reasonable. You keep somebody around, you're still fairly competitive, but not crazy. You know that your championship window's over.
Yeah.
It makes sense. But you get rid of him for a 36-year-old who has one of the worst contracts in the NBA at this point.
Terrible.
I mean, you didn't just close the door. You slammed it and padlocked it and then staple gunned around the outside of the door to make sure that it was closed. That is one of the worst trades I've witnessed. I've seen Celtics fans freaking out about it. And now here's what I'll say. To the Celtics fans who I'm friends with, I'm sorry you have to go through this. Now you know what it's like being a part of the Mets organization and all of the other organizations that I root for other than my football. And where I'll go with this. As a Knicks fan, ha, 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 ha. That was so stupid to give him to a division rival.
God.
A division rival. I could understand. Trade him to the Western Conference. You don't got to see him. You don't got to worry about playing him in the playoffs unless you make it to the finals. Fine.
Yeah.
You trade him, again, to the team that knocked you out after being down 3-1. And now they're significantly better. The Sixers, with this trade, Your starting
They're cooking.
5, I'm pretty sure, didn't they add Dean Wade as well in this offseason?
Yeah, good three-point
Their
shooter.
starting 5 is going to be Maxey, Edgecombe, Brown, Wade, and Embiid.
It's disgusting.
If Embiid can stay healthy, this team is going to be an easy favorite to win the East.
Yeah.
I would put them in conversations with the Knicks and the Pistons. Even the Cavs I'd still put up there unless, I'm curious to see if they make more moves too. And the Raptors. Yeah. I put them in that top tier.
Me too.
The Celtics, you may not even make the playoffs. I don't think. Now, they still got Tatum, and they still have Peyton Pritchard. They still have Derek White, and they just added Mitch Robinson.
Yeah.
So they'll be okay. I wouldn't say that they're going to be championship
They'll make
caliber.
the playoffs.
I think that they can make the playoffs. But the other thing I'm thinking is, I wonder if Jason Tatum is on the move. I wonder if that's what they're thinking. I think that maybe, are they a little bit concerned about, the process of him coming back from injury before? Because I'm not saying that he didn't look good. I mean, he looked good.
Yeah, he was good.
But he didn't look like the Jason Tatum that we saw pre-injury. So I wonder if the Celtics are sitting there going, well, we're going to move Jaylen Brown. If they start out slow next year, is it possible that Jason Tatum is one of the other pieces that's on the table and he gets moved as well?
Yeah, this felt like such a Shaq and Kobe ego battle. We need to move one of those guys type of deal, which it doesn't seem like on the outside it was that dire, but I think there's going to be more details that emerge over the next couple months to years to decades to why this just fell apart so badly. For the Celtics, man, I think really since they lost Marcus Smart, they've been missing that glue guy, that passionate guy who is going to lead the team. And I felt like Jaylen Brown was like the last glimpse of that guy who just on a night-to-night basis shows that significant passion and want and desire. And will get on his teammates sometimes and ruffle the feathers a little bit, man. You need somebody like that on a championship team. I feel like the biggest criticism of Paul George and Jason Tatum have been a lack of leadership, man, a lack of backbone, this 9-to-5 attitude they have about the game of basketball. I'm not saying they don't work hard outside of the games. I think they do. I think they put significant time into the gym. It's the leadership aspect. Jason Tatum's been so quiet in the locker room his entire career. Paul George has been so quiet in the locker room his entire career. This team has no freaking backbone, man. That's one of the issues with the Celtics, and it just gets worse. You literally get pandemic P on your team, a perennial playoff choker, a guy who was pretty good in the Celtics series, but he's not going to be contributing anything to this roster long term.
I agree. I just think that overall, you look at the move, it was very bad. Again, you didn't even mention the contract itself. I mean, sure enough,
the worst part.
That is the worst part about it, is the fact that the Celtics bring on that contract, have to take on
no space.
Full, and they have no cap space.
None.
So good luck signing any other free agents after you just signed Mitch Robinson. I mean, listen, if that's the guy that you want to poach from the Knicks,
cool.
Take him. Listen, I love Mitch and what he did for the New York Knicks organization.
Legendary.
But defensively, he's great.
Yeah.
Rebounding, getting boards off the glass, fantastic. Good luck with him shooting. And especially his free throws. People are imagine this. The first game at either TD Garden or Madison Square Garden, Knicks versus Celtics, and they get late into the game, and it's Hack-a-Mitch.
Oh, yeah,
Hack-a-Mitch.
I was about to say that, dude.
Imagine how mad Joe Mazzulla is going to be on the bench.
Oh, my God.
It is going to be disastrous in that aspect, on top of the fact that you don't have Mr. Jaylen Brown to contribute his scoring. I believe he averaged, 28 points a game last year?
Had the best year of his career, and he was a phenomenal ball handler. We talk about the fit between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum being a little bit clunky, but at least Jaylen Brown did complement Jason Tatum in the sense of Jason Tatum is a 2-dribble, 3-dribble or less type of scorer, whereas Jaylen Brown is a guy who is going to handle the ball significantly. He's going to have significant amount of dribbles per possession, and he's going to kind of dictate the offense in that sense. Paul George is like the same exact player as Jason Tatum. They're this 1-2 dribble, get to my spot, rise up and shoot the ball type of guy. They're not going to have a lot of attacking presence around the rim. They're going to be settling for so many bad 3-point shots. They're going to be settling for so many deep twos. I see clunkiness written all over this offense. I think the pairing of Paul George and Tatum defensively will be good, but This is just such a bad move.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Celtics fans freaking out about it. Not just them either, but other NBA analysts and, podcasters, people like ourselves that kind of want to review things. And I saw a lot of them all agreeing in that sense that this trade has been absolutely terrible no matter which way you look at it, whether you look at it for money purposes, whether you look at it for the haul that you get, whether you look at it for trading a star player and what you get back. The whole thing makes no sense. No. Him going to the 76ers makes them lethal. Meanwhile, Boston gets significantly worse. This trade does not make any sense, especially coming from the fact that your GM was the executive of the year last year, and this is the move that he makes after all of the hype that was going around. Imagine being a Celtics fan at this point and sitting there, you start your summer off, and the first rumor is, we're getting Giannis Antetokounmpo.
And then you end up
now
like this.
You don't get Giannis, and you lose Jaylen Brown for Paul George.
Oh, man. And the kicker, man, Jaylen Brown never requested a trade. You didn't have to do this. I'd rather just roll into next year with a disgruntled Jaylen Brown who never requested a trade than to go for it and do this.
On
this
top
is
of the
just
fact,
such a bad deal, dude.
On top of the fact that if he's disgruntled, I guess if they start winning, I don't think he's really going to be as disgruntled anymore.
He's been patient with them, man.
Very. The whole thing does not make sense, but the way that we'll kind of wrap this up is, I know that trade was bad, but we're just going to go over, of course, the New York Knicks offseason so far. I know it really hasn't entailed all too much.
Yeah.
There really hasn't had much to do because a lot of guys are under contract. You're not going to have to worry about any of your core guys like Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. All those guys are there. But they did want to try and run it back in a sense. You still have Deuce McBride under contract. You still have Tyler Kolek under contract. Pacome Diatta is still under contract as well. There's a bunch of other guys as well that are under contract, but there were 4 names that came up, and they needed to re-sign. Couple of them they did, couple of them they did not. One of them you already know is Mitch Robinson left and signed with the Celtics for 3 years, $47.4 million.
Yeah.
Again, best of luck to Mitch there. I appreciate what he did for the title run, but again, you are on the opposition now, so don't be looking for any friendliness. The Knicks do, however, keep Jose Alvarado around. I know they signed him a couple days ago to a 3-year, $14+ million contract.
Yep.
I'm glad he stayed. He's a New York native.
Phenomenal energy, man.
I love the attitude that he brings.
Me too.
He defines New York as a whole to me.
He really does.
I think that he's got the persona for it. I think that he's got the play style for it.
Yep.
He accepts his role really well. What he contributed during the playoff run was awesome. On top of the fact that they also keep Landry Shamet around for a 4-year, $24 million deal. He returns to the Knicks. Happy with this signing again. Glad that he got paid. The fact that this man had a 10-day contract and is now getting a 4-year, $24 million deal.
Good for him, man.
Great for him. I'm super happy for the guy. He deserved it.
100%.
And then the one that we did lose, which unfortunately it's really not that big of a loss in my opinion, is Ariel Huckport. He signed a 1-year, $3.4 million deal also with the Philadelphia 76ers. Again, didn't really contribute much, didn't need him to. Was happy that he was a part of the team. He did come in and absorb some fouls when guys like Robinson and Towns were in some foul trouble.
Yeah.
So, again, thankful for what he's done for the organization. Obviously, I expected him to move on. He was one of the pieces. But, again, Knicks as a whole basically kept a lot of the guys in the same sense. I'm curious to see what route they go now. I think that Kevon Looney is one that they've mentioned a couple
I think that'd
times.
be really good for their rebounding presence, too. Just to eat those Karl Anthony Towns minutes. And where I want to really wrap this podcast and conversation up with the Knicks, I saw Landry Shamet go on a podcast recently and talk about the synergy of this bench unit and the synergy of the team. And he said, whenever you have a bench unit with multiple guards, multiple players at the same position, you're fighting for your life and you're low-key in the back of your head, you're kind of rooting for them to fail because it's your job, it's your livelihood. You're Landry Shamet, you're on a 10-day contract. You kind of need a guy like McBride to have an off night so you get an opportunity. And what Landry Shamet said is it's the first team he's ever gone to where every single player at the same exact position fighting for their life are all rooting for each other, man. They're all rooting for each other. They all have this phenomenal synergy, not only off the court, which is so vitally important, but they have phenomenal synergy playing with each other on the court. It's so rare to see multiple backup guards play really well off of each other. And this team just plays so well off of each other. Jose Alvarado and Landry Shamet and McBride play so well off of each other. And to retain this core, man, when you're bringing in a guy like Jose Alvarado, like Landry Shamet, you don't know if they have the mentality of Landry Shamet, the mentality of Jose Alvarado, even if their box score, their box stats look exactly the same. So to bring in those, I don't care what they do on the box score necessarily, to bring in those personalities, to bring in that synergy and team chemistry, I mean, it's just so vital for this Knicks team, and it's why they're going to be a contender next year.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest reason why they were a really good team this year and ended up winning themselves the NBA championship was just not only the competitiveness that they showcased, the talent that they have in their starting five, but also the fact that everybody was there for one another. This group was so well connected. They got along so well. They were there for each other through the good times and the bad. You saw it after the Atlanta game that they lost in that first series, that second game. Something different inside of them clicked. I don't know if it was a locker room discussion. I believe it was. They said that everybody sat down and it was a players team meeting, and they ran the whole thing, and whatever happened in that room from that moment defined this team, made them the champions that they are today. Again, I'm thankful for every single one of them, for the ones that are on the team still, for the ones that have departed. Again, thank you very much. But that being said, we are going to close out the show. So thank you guys so much for tuning into our 50th episode number 50, season 2, episode 3. I'm your host, Zach.
I'm Mike.
Thank you for coming on again this week, Mike.
Yes,
and
sir.
We hope that all of our viewers have a very happy, healthy, and safe 4th of July. We will see you next week.